just remind us all how grateful we all are to be here. And let's open up our morning proceedings with a recitation of the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
And while we're all very grateful to be here and alive, we're also grateful to be in Pakistan. So let's hear the national anthem. Can you please stand up? And we'll honor our country for the day. And we'll get right down to business here now. Our formalities are out of the way. It's great to have everybody back here. This is day 2 of the summit, and I hope you all were as wired and inspired as I was yesterday. It was a really, really wonderful day, and today I can promise you something even better. I think right throughout yesterday, one of the themes that we were beginning to hear a lot about was that no matter what we need to be doing out there, it really all comes down to the power and the progress and the focus of the people. And today, that's very much what we're going to really focus on. And our first session, The Future of Work, will actually deal with this. And later on, we're going to be looking at the future of diversity and inclusion, also job creation in Pakistan, and looking at finance and leadership as well. So again, an action-packed day, so I want your absolute attention if we can today. There's no need to put any housekeeping rules. I think you're all, you know what that, but how about housekeeping expectations? No rules, expectations. One thing I am going to please again ask you for, if you want to have a telephone conversation, one of those old-fashioned things, please have it outside. If you're going to, be texting and tweeting, get the message out. We were trending yesterday all day, so let's make sure that leadership in Islamabad is up there on the top tweet of the day and make sure everybody is hearing the messages coming loud and strong from this conference. For some of you, we had the great pleasure of visiting with the Prime Minister yesterday, and while he talked about investment and he talked about progress and the future of Pakistan, what he really talked about, and you could feel his passion, was the people here. And the people and the change in mindset that he really wants to see here. Because ultimately, our biggest obstacles, and the issues we deal with, the only limits we put are ourselves. So let's make sure we sort of rethink and move forward. Let's get my team up here and start this conversation. I'd like to welcome the advisor to the Prime Minister for the Court of Bahrain and the chairman of the International Federation of Training and Development Organizations, Dr. Ebrahim Khalifa al-Dossary. Dr. Ebrahim is in the house. Please, if you can take perhaps the furthest seat. Or the nearest one, because I know Paul, our moderator, is not going to sit. So wherever you're comfortable, you can join us here. The Chief Information Officer and Digital Officer from Coca-Cola in Turkey, Leyla Delic, is with us. Leyla, thank you so much. From Siemens, the Executive Vice President of Strategy in the Middle East, please welcome Manuel Kuehn. The CEO of HUBCO is with us, Khalid Mansoor. And from Telenor, Pakistan, the CEO, Irfan Wahab Khan. So as you can see, a tremendous panel here, and I'm now leaving it in the very capable hands of the CEO of the Talent Games, a man who is an expert in transforming top teams, not just in the country, around the world, Paul Keijzer.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Is this working? Do you mind if I stand not behind the roster, but just on the podium? I feel much more comfortable. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on probably the most wide in scope conversation that today is going to happen, which is about the future of work. It's a vast conversation with vast implications. And I must say, I've got, I don't know how Essen did it, but he's got the most amazing panel with me. So don't expect me to talk a lot. I'm here just to make sure that this esteemed panel is able to share some of their thoughts. My aim is to structure the conversation into a number of different parts, and my aim is also to engage you in terms of a number of different components. The structure of the conversation is going to be around 3 different components. The first one is going to be about the future of workplace. The second one is going to be the future of work and the implications for business opportunities. And the third one, as Leyla beautifully captured, is not so much about what's going to happen over the next 10 years in the future of work, but what's going to happen thereafter in terms of the future of life. And I'm going to just plant that seed already with you, because I think some very meaningful conversations we can have around the concept of the future of life. In each of those 3 sections, I will give you the opportunity to ask a few questions. As the MC earlier mentioned, we're not looking for speakers for the next event, so I would really appreciate if you can keep your questions relatively short to make sure that as many people as possible will be able to get the opportunity to ask those questions. Secondly, the panel and I have also agreed that we try to make it as conversational as possible. I will start off with giving them an opportunity to give their perspective of what they think the future of work with regards to the workplace is all about, and then subsequently we're going to have a conversation around that. But first, let me first introduce, I'm a part-time consultant and a part-time CEO of an HR technology startup. And as consultants, we like to have frameworks, because the frameworks helps structure the conversation. So let me first put a little bit of structure around the future of work, and then I give the panel the opportunity to open the conversation. The first component that I would like to talk about is what shapes the future of work. And I think a number of them are very straightforward. The technology component, the technology aspect of the future of work is very expected. AI, robotics, IoT, data, machine learning, the whole fancy word charade comes out in terms of the impact of technology. The second force that shapes the future of work is changing demographics, whether that's to do with longer lives, people that a different generation of talent, where talent is located around the world, etc., etc. The third one is our ability of connectivity. Yeah? It's no longer necessary for us to sit in one office to create a product. We can do that all over the world. The information that's available, we now have a global workforce. And the fourth one, which is something which is really emerging over the last couple of years, which is around changing social expectations. And I really think that the future of work will have a huge impact in terms of when we look at purpose and meaning, when we look at things like gender equality, when we look at things like inequity, when we look at things like flexibility, or even about addressing global issues. And many CEOs are now, as an individual as well as a company, are being forced to choose and to explain where they stand on very contentious social issues. And that requires a very different way to lead than it was in the past. So those are the four forces that shape the global workforce: technology, demographics, connectivity, and social expectations. And that, of course, has a huge impact in terms of the kind of organization that we want to build, how we deal with talent, the workplace that we have, and how do we use technology to create better, efficient workplaces. So, talking about, I'm going to turn to my panel. Talking about the future of work in terms of the relation between employee and employer. How is that going to change on the basis of these four forces that are going to change the workforce in the future? Who wants to? Khalid?
Well, good morning and Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think I like the way you explained that we need to understand the framework. And the future of work, in my assessment, will be characterized by two components. One is psychographics, and psychographics of the centennials, the younger organization which is evolving, and those are the people born in 1995. Because that is the generation which exhibit totally different behavior, the way they have grown up with the internet and with the mobile telephony and with the technological tools available to them. And secondly, what technology offers to really, help them in day-to-day workplace. Okay. So with these two things, what I believe that whether in the organization or transaction, we need to understand the psychological part of the people you will be inducting and working with. They are very, very different people. And I would like to really have the conversation to have equal importance on the psychological part of the people you will be dealing with, and also technology, and how they kind of dovetail to evolve the future workplace.
Fantastic. Leyla, in our pre-conversation you talked about, and that fits very perfectly what Khalid just mentioned, around the cultural elements and how the future of work is going to impact the culture of the organization. Can you help me understand how values of the future, or which values of the future are going to be more impactful than the ones that we currently have?
Absolutely. So I think culture is one of the most critical elements, one for us to change, adapt to what's happening, but more importantly, start changing. A couple of things. One, obviously, we're going to definitely see more mission-based organizations. So, Paul, you mentioned purpose. I think purpose is going to be one of the key drivers for us to attract the right talent and groom the talent that we have. The second one is going to be imagination and innovation. So how do we create that culture of learning, failing, and then the third very critical element is diversity and inclusion. Okay. So for us, how do we really encourage and enable the culture where we connect with people from various parts of the world, doesn't matter which element of diversity they represent.
Okay. Can I just, because I know that Irfan, as part of Telenor, is really going this journey of failing and learning, and in a very Pakistani context. I've been here long enough to understand that we don't really like to fail as daisies. So, Irfan, how do you manage this?
That's a very good question. Actually, I think it's the realization, as Khalid also said, that when you look at the millennials and Generation Z, I mean, you see a very different mindset than traditional mindset. So when you look at the talent of today, they are very open. They would like to sort of be recognized, not necessarily by fancy titles and the salary they take home, which are important things, by the way, but also the challenge they get, the opportunity to learn, opportunity to grow. Because one thing they've realized is that the world is changing because of technology and the other trends which you mentioned. How can they upskill? What sort of opportunities our organization is giving them to explore, to experiment, to collaborate? Because the traditional hierarchies are also falling apart. Yeah. There's a new thinking around, exponential growth and organizational structure, which are thinking exponential. People would like to see a purpose in their lives, and they need alignment with their own values with the business they are. So it's a war of talent, I think. It's a war out there where, people like to excel in a different way, not necessarily through vertical movements, but in terms of knowledge and skill sets and their contribution towards a larger ecosystem. And that's happening in Pakistan as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Irfan. Dr. Ebrahim, in terms of culture and values, how do you think that's going to change from your perspective over the next number of years?
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to go back to your initial question when you said, what will be the relationship between the boss and the employee? Well, in fact, I think when we talk about the future of jobs, our aim is not to predict the future. Our aim is to enhance it, support it, and create it and make it happen, first of all. Secondly, I believe the future of work, there will be a very thin relationship between employer and employee, whereby there will be no more fixed contracts as such. I think, people walk in, walk out. They do the mission, they leave. So there will be no more, as we call it, loyalty to organizations. It's loyalty to the job itself, to the mission. So the mission, whether available in this organization or in that organization, I think this will be the future of jobs. With regard to the effect of future of jobs on culture, definitely there'll be a massive changes in our day-to-day culture. Even in governments, even in our social lives. But as I said, it is not our aim to predict what will happen. Our aim is to tailor it, to shape it, and make it happen to the best of humankind.
Fantastic. I really appreciate it. It's not about predicting, but shaping it. Manuel, you're VP of Strategy. You would like to predict the future. So how do you respond to that?
Well, honestly, I realized already if I could really predict the future, I had come with a helicopter probably, but I didn't. So I actually looked a bit at when you invited me for the panel. I looked at notes from a panel 1.5 years ago on a similar topic, and I read it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I changed my opinion. So what I learned is that we have to adapt very quickly. We are all in a process of learning individually, and also for like I am coming from Siemens in a larger corporation. I have seen now in the last couple of years, for every buzzword you want to put on the table, I can tell you 1 or 2 corporate initiatives we have run on diversity, agility, gender equality, and they are all there, right? But if you put people a bit in distress, and then you see suddenly, okay, we talk about it, but in a situation of distress, it's very difficult to see it really happen. So what I've learned over time, and I got less bullish on the topic, is that it's way more difficult. It's good. It's easy to even understand what the current situation is. It's very difficult to achieve a sustainable change in behavior, and that's more a marathon than a sprint. And that's my learning from the last 1.5 years. It will take us much more effort than we actually believe.
Takes much more
really
effort.
Change it.
Khalid, in terms of, so it's not about predicting, but shaping and adapting. Can you trend with I can see that for leaders, but how does that translate for employees, middle managers, and individual contributors in the organization?
Look, I would like to just add on what Doctor just said. Look, you see, the challenge we have, that we have to shape the organization given the attributes, the behavior of the people. And they're totally different people. I mean, they are not a kind of people which have a lot of patience, they would like to grow, they would like to achieve, sense of purpose, belonging, and so on and so forth, but not really loyalty. Loyalty is something, which the people of our age used to work for one organization, stay there. So having said that, the challenge is going to be with the increased automation, artificial intelligence, etc., etc. From the organization perspective, that is available to everybody. What is going to be making the difference is the intellectual capacity of the organization. How do they use that technology to be the cutting edge, producing better and better results, and so on and so forth. Similarly, with these kind of introduction of the technology, organization structures are going to be totally different. Much, much leaner organization, not compartments, because, it is going to be based on the technological know-how. And as Doctor just said, their mindset, I'm talking about the Centennial, and the business, they just jive in, which is called the gig economy. The plug in, plug out. You have specific problem, you don't have to have a permanent employee. You just call those people, they come, maybe on a shorter contract, or even for a day's type of job, come in and go. So having said that, from the people standpoint, they need to acquire a very specific skill set rather than, generics. Generics are going to be finding the environment very, very difficult. Conversely, the organization have to really place themselves with number of things, as I said, capturing and attracting, first of all, the highest capable, capacity, and then the next challenge is, given their, psychology, how to retain them. Yeah. The performance management, the incentivization, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Last but not the least, the organization which are not afraid of testing. Critical example is SpaceX, testing and failing, and still, kind of working with the people to have the diversity, to have the, technological cutting edge, and finally, they were successful. And now, they envision, they aspire to be having a colony on the Mars. So that is a totally different, mindset or the environment I think we will be dealing with.
Anybody wants to build on Irfan?
Go ahead. All right, just to build on your question of how does it seen by at various levels of the organization. So what our experience is that when you look at, not everyone will make it. Not everyone will make it to this agile journey of failing fast and doing experimentation, because especially at the middle management level, we see a lot of roadblockers as well. When you talk about agility and adapting new ways of work, for example, Scrum, you're talking about a new organization structure or approach. For example, tribes way of work, where you gather people from different parts of organization, whether it's technology, marketing, product, coming together, delivering on a specific project or a challenge. And this is all about individual contribution there. So the power of the line manager per se is questioned, is challenged. And that's where they become the most vulnerable. And that's what we see in our organization as well. So we launched a challenge last year, actually. We said that now, we all need to sort of upskill. There are so many other things happening in the technological world. And we come up with a challenge, which is a global challenge at Telenor level, is at 40 hours of learning last year. And when we launched it, a lot of people were really afraid, especially the middle manager. And when we discussed it before launching in a big town hall, there was a lot of resistance. What we see is that people at the foundation layers, they have overachieved. As an organization, we have overachieved it as well. Over 50 hours average per employee. But we see that people who are, a different mindset, more agile, they have taken as a great opportunity. That doesn't mean that we are not investing into traditional ways of learning and development, but people see that we have to take this in our own hands. We cannot expect from any organization to give us a path forward. We have to upskill ourselves. And other realization is that there are pockets of, because of globalization, pockets of talent, right? So for example, we have decided a long time ago that we will be the hub for data and digital analytics. We will be not serving just Pakistan, but many other countries. And we are quite successful today that we are serving out of Pakistan all Telenor markets. But when you look at certain skill set, for example, user design and customer journeys, you won't find it in every market. So that's a new trend which you see, that there's a globalization is also creating hubs of certain or clusters of development, and you need to tap into that talent. So that means that those resources are now global. Their reach has really gone ahead of their own market.
Leyla, you wanted to add to this?
I think listening to the discussion, one thing we should also highlight is the change in the leadership traits. Right, so some of the underlining topics that we are hearing here, if we don't work on changing the leadership traits and what we expect from leaders, we're going to probably see a lot of us try. Manuel, you were saying, we tried and we are seeing kind of things going back. So what are the leadership traits of this era? It's no more hierarchical leaders, right? It's no more authoritative leaders, right? I think we need to start talking about transformational change leadership and what are those traits, so that on one hand, we attract talent based on purpose, we provide them the environment that they are looking for, but we also have a huge workforce right now that needs to transform. Right? So we need to, as an enterprise, as governments, educational systems, we need to help them to transform. And that's where you require different leadership to drive that.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, can I Marshall?
Yes.
Of Manuel?
Yeah, I just wanted to add what Irfan said. It's with the middle management. I mean, we just have to see it out of the perspective of people in these positions. They spend 10, 15, 20 years to get there, and they really did hard work to get there. And by a certain means, right? And now suddenly we come and say, it's great, but now you have to do it differently, right? And that's extremely difficult to let go of this. I mean, it creates such an incredible insecurity. And I see exactly the same aspect. If I go to the lower levels and say, you do 50 trainings, tomorrow they are done. They go to the next level and say, I did those 50 trainings, can I apply it somewhere? The middle management says, did you talk about the risk? And it really depends on how we steer the company top down. If we don't allow the middle management to take risk, but we allow the lower levels to take the trainings, and then we look at it afterwards and say, oh, it's interesting, we do all the good things, but nothing's going to happen. So it's a lot about corporate risk-taking and risk management as well. Fail fast and cheap, is a nice slogan. How often did we really fail cheap? So if we don't get that done, we put actually people in a very difficult position, and later on we say, oh, you are not flexible. Yeah? We really have to be cautious about this.
Khalid, can I?
Yeah, just one comment. This is my personal observation as well. I think the major challenge is going to be the engagement of the people. The current mindset is that we have a hall, we have workstations, and people just chat or message each other to resolve a problem. They would not encourage themselves to go and talk. I think that is also a kind of behavioral change I am seeing. More and more, the training, you are a consultant, your job is also at stake, I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
Because you see, I always encourage the training thing because people have opportunity to interact each other, to engage with each other, and so on and so forth. And now my training budget has been halved because they say, well, there are, LinkedIn learning. And those kind of tools, again, that is going to create more isolation. Yeah. So I guess going forward, we need to really draw a very clear distinction in order to achieve result. What I have learned in my career, it's a kind of enthusiasm, it's a teamwork, engagement, everybody is kind of aligned, vision is clear, and so on and so forth. So I think that part really worries me, and special attention will be needed by leaders, whether it is the CEOs of the organization, the executive, the middle management, how to really encourage people to engage with each other, to understand, although, sense of purpose may be there, but it is all about, the collective wisdom and the collective intellectual property.
Thank you. Yeah. Doctor, any views on this?
Well, in fact, scary. In fact, you know, when we talk about the future of jobs, it doesn't mean that, you know, we get rid from the old jobs and create new ones. The purpose is to try to come with the jobs that suiting the current situation and suiting the future situations. I made a research with regard to the future of jobs, and it shows very clearly. We made a research that it covers a few countries, and it shows very clearly there are some jobs that are declining and some jobs are emerging. Within the next 20 years, we'll see a lot of almost like 157 and more of jobs, current jobs, that we feel proud of right now. It will demolish. We'll not see those jobs anymore. And probably if you'd like to hear, I mean, I have a list of jobs, for example. I mean, like, you know, the jobs that declining will be, I mean, like data entry clerk, accountant and bookkeepers, and payroll, administration and executive secretaries. For example, like, you know, a lot of us, like, they don't count anymore on executive secretaries. Like, I mean, this is my office nowadays, and I'm sure to most of you, this is my bank, it's my secretary, it's my executive secretary, it's my assistant. I mean, it do all the jobs. So I have the office, and this is smartphone. There'll be no more customer services accountants or agents. You don't need those. I mean, mobile do everything. Everything will be digital. There'll be no more editors and accountants. There'll be no more stockkeepers and clerks and such on. Postal service is finishing almost. Nobody's using postal service. And there'll be a lot of new jobs that emerging. And I would like to advise parents, you know, to concentrate on jobs that goes for digitals and jobs that it need brain enhancement. This will be the future of the jobs. So for your kids, I strongly recommend, you know, go for digital studies.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's a wonderful introduction to my next question. Thank you, Doctor. Because I want to ask some questions from the audience. But before I do that, if you would have to give this audience one single piece of advice to keep themselves relevant for the future of work, what would that be?
I think the way, as I said, that the world is going to be more and more of speciality, right? And with the increase artificial intelligence and, you know, introduction of the technology, etc., there will not be, you know, future for journalists. So they will have to really sense the environment, position themselves, and
find your niche.
Find your niche.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Leyla, the one advice?
In addition to technical skills, gain empathy, collaborative intelligence, teamwork. Those are going to be critical skills for the future.
Thank you. Manuel.
And when you have done this, learn how to operate without org charts.
How to learn without?
Without org charts.
Without org charts. How to learn to operate without a boss.
I would say keep learning. I mean, it's about constant renewal all the time.
Constant renewal. Fantastic. Doctor, any other additional advice to the audience?
Well, you know, as I said, I think, you know, we see very clearly now a lot of jobs been vanishing. For example, like journalists. I don't think we're going to see newspapers in the next few years. We will not see fuel stations. As you see, I mean, if you go to some cities in Europe, you will see some cars that electrical cars, especially in Japan. But you will see, I mean, instead of fuel stations, you will see some plugs in the streets. So again, you know, I strongly recommend that, you know, try to give your kids a free hands to study whatever they want.
Thank you.
They know better than us.
Thank you. Can I ask the audience for a question? The question that I would like to focus on, if you allow me, is to translate your work environment into the environment of the future. Because some of the stuff that the gentleman and lady talked about here is of a different, not many workplaces in Pakistan will qualify for that. Can I just have a question over there, please? sorry, the lady first.
You have 2 microphones.
Okay. I take 3 questions and then I continue the conversation.
Good morning. Thank you so much for all the speakers and for you, Mr. Paul. My question would be, technologies are allowing us to do a lot of work remotely. How relevant would it be to say, I'm going to work? How relevant this term is going to be for the future in the next 20 to 30 years? And how are you going to be adapting to this new concept?
I know that Irfan has just introduced flexible work. So Irfan, this is one for you.
It's been over a year, Paul. So yes, we've introduced going beyond, which means that there are no fixed hours, even there are no core hours, so people can work. And we are a technology company with great connectivity. And it was not easy because, again, the problem was more of the managers who thought that they need to control people who needs to be in office, physically present in front of them, and not necessarily the tasks. It has been a journey, even today, but I think regardless of the cultural differences, it has been a fantastic journey. What we see is the productivity going up. We see that employees are more empowered, and it creates actually a lot of loyalty and bond towards the organization.
Can I just add a very personal example? I try to do for my small company exactly the same. Do you know who's got the biggest trouble adjusting? Me. Because my bias is that my work ethic is that I start at 8:30 in the morning. And I see all these guys coming in at 11 o'clock and I scratch my head and say, what the hell has he been doing? Or she been doing? Yeah, so I think the biggest problem is me. So I think...
Can I also add, you know, going to work, I like that. I think we are not going to have one specific work, right? We are talking about, you know, there's in literature, right, you've probably heard knowledge worker. So we're going to be acquiring skills, intellectual property, to meet a certain outcome. So the purpose and outcome is going to determine what you are going to do, and enterprises or people who have problems to be solved will be acquiring intellectual property and skills. So you are not necessarily going to be working for a specific company, probably, but you're going to be serving a purpose.
Thank you. Thank you. There was another question right here.
Amy? So basically, with the change of time, we are noticing that we are moving from big offices to the co-working spaces. And like CEOs and managers are more available in comparison to past. And every employee can approach them and talk to them. But this also raises a concern where we are giving more freedom to our employees and like we are interacting on regular basis. So at times we notice that they don't take us that much seriously. So how do you draw a line between the interaction and also they at times they ignore the line managers, etc., and directly reach out to the top hierarchy rather than taking everyone on board. So how to resolve that thing? Especially in Pakistan, as per the perspective of our nation or how we work.
Khalid first and then Irfan.
I think, you see, the environment is changing. You know, in our time, I remember it used to be extremely bureaucratic, and go and you know, talk to your manager used to be a challenge. I'm talking about that, you see, if you look at the hierarchy, if, for instance, you are a middle management, you have a section head or unit manager, and then you have a departmental manager. So very rarely, you know, you would have opportunity. And I remember in my days, if the manager has called you into your office, people will just wonder what's happening. But now, I guess the technology is different. You know, many people, honest to God, I'm telling you, that they send me a message that, you see, I know you are very busy, but I would like to come and talk to you. I have some idea, etc., etc. So encourage yourself to really communicate and express your. Because you see, this world is going to be now, you know, people who are going to be bringing the innovative ideas. That is going to really create a distinction between an outstanding employee and create an impression with the people who matter. Because then they will be focusing more that, well, you know, here's the potential, I need to be spending more time to give him more exposure so that he should be able to grow and will be a clear-cut candidate for higher level succession.
Irfan? Just a short answer.
Sure. Yeah, so this week we are celebrating 14 years in Pakistan, and we've introduced this when we enter into this market. Egalitarian culture, open spaces, so anyone can walk up to anyone, and discuss. It's been a journey, to be honest. I mean, we have been cases where people have refused to join the organization because they wanted their corner offices. But what we see is that it is fantastic to sort of communicate directly. It nurtures collaboration. It also gives you, real-time pulse of the business, ideas. Employees feel really empowered, and this is certainly the way to go for the business who have not really adapted this. I think this is like a social norm. When mobile phone came early days, I mean, we remember that even in social gatherings, it was ringing all the time. But look around now, people have really adapted this. So I think it's a learning, but it's a fantastic thing to do, actually.
2 more questions, and then I continue the conversation. I've got one in the back and one here. So please.
So my question is for Leyla. Long time ago, I had worked at Coca-Cola Export Corporation back in Lahore, and this is quite a decade ago. This is the time when Coke wanted to introduce Coke Studio in Pakistan. And now how you structured your entire conversation on culture and imagination. I'm wondering, what would Coca-Cola's future look like? How is Coke imagining its own future?
All right, so being 7 months in, yeah, I haven't been in Coca-Cola system for a long time. Obviously, we are looking at the trends on, health, right? The food and beverage, how we're going to consume the beverage, and how we're going to eat, and what are we going to eat. I think the innovation and imagination is going to be coming from that angle. For us, as the bottler organization, though, it's slightly different because we are on the supply chain and execution side. So for us, the innovation imagination is going to be coming really from productivity. And I think for all of our employees, what we didn't discuss maybe here is how do we augment their capabilities? How do we make their life easier? How do we increase their job satisfaction, their work satisfaction, or their purpose satisfaction? That's kind of what we are focusing on as a bottler, but on the whole system-wise, we are looking at what is that future consumption look like.
Okay, thank you. Question here.
Hi, my name is Fahad Mir. I'm from S&P Global. And thank you all for answering and sharing your insight. I just have a question in regard to right now in this world, as we have the advent of the internet revolution for the past 15 years, it's resulted in the haves and the have-nots and the resulting polarization in our society. As leaders of your organizations and government organizations, what do you see as your part in the coming have-nots?
Okay, fantastic. Can I just use this as a stepping stone for my next 10, 15 minutes, which is that we move from the future of work to the future of life. Thank you, Leyla, for making that distinction. And I think the point here is specifically around the future of work has got this tremendous amount of opportunities, but also got tremendous amount of potential catastrophes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whether it's to do with people in and out, the haves or have-not, equality. Whether it's to do with equity. Whether it's to do with how did I write that down? Sorry, I have to pick it up. In terms of your lifelong learning, but specifically also in terms of the quality of life. Anybody? Yeah. Doctor, let's start with yourself.
Yeah,
sorry.
Just before we move on to this topic, Paul, since I am from the industry, so I just want to give a context to the participants that the future of work from the technological standpoint, I think the technological environment is changing and changing fast. Some of our assets, they are extremely old. They are not as efficient, and you don't have to be competitive, or you would not be competitive. But the real thing is the digitization and the technological retrofits. Because recent example is that one of our plant, we are the biggest IPP, it is as old as mid-90s. So the efficiency was bad. Thanks to the technological development, we contacted GE. So what they have done, that they have removed, for instance, big turbines, the old rotor, and installed the state-of-the-art rotor, which has improved the efficiency by almost 3.5%. Second thing is that in our industrial life, it is very, very difficult to ascertain when to shut down the plant and when to repair, what to repair, etc., right? But now, you know, the digitization and the real-time optimization is in there. One of our plant through cloud is being monitored in Atlanta, and they look at the data and they will immediately tell us what to do. So the change in environment is paradigm shift from preventive to predictive. And I would encourage people to use these technological interventions to really, you know, be competitive, change the industrial output, the efficiency, etc., etc.
Fantastic. Thank you for highlighting that. I just want to build on the question and talk about the future of life. Doctor, what's your perspective?
It will definitely affect you know, the future of life and societies. Therefore, I think it's quite important that, you know, we stick to values. We teach our kids, you know, the values, and we stick to certain traditions, no matter how far. You're good. No matter how far they go in educational of digital studies and research, but I think we need to give them a free hand. There will be a lot of changes in families. There will be a lot of changes in societies. There will be a lot of changes in governments. Governments will definitely turn into e-governments. And again, as my colleagues have said in here, I think, you know, start from the top, from the leadership. You know, when you want to clean a staircase, you start from the top, you don't start from the bottom. And this will be quite important. So, you know, the changes have to be within us. Probably we are quite old, but we have to accept the changes, and we have to teach, you know, the new generations how to adapt to changes with sticking to the values, because technologies can be dangerous. It can devastate countries and nations, and without sticking to values and the morality of nations, things can turn into a dangerous era. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Irfan, let's start with you.
So I'm actually very optimistic about future of life in the context of technological changes, because I think this, what does it do is to actually reduce the inequalities which do exist around the world. So technology is the biggest equalizer, actually. It can create opportunities to empower businesses, propel growth and prosperity. Think of a country like Pakistan, where, you know, a lot of people are below poverty line, and just by giving access to technology can change their lives, whether it's health, education, agriculture, commerce. So it will become sort of the foundation for empowering society overall. It will create opportunities which never existed before. So from that context, I think the future looks very bright to me. Also, I mean, think from a citizen to, or government to citizen services, a lot of inefficiencies in the system can be addressed. SMEs and individual contributor will benefit most, I would say. And I would say above all, one of the bigger issue for us as a society is lack of female participation in the workforce. And with technology advancement, this will transform this. Imagine females can work from the comfort of their own homes at the, you know, chosen hours, whatever suit them, leveraging technology. And through the opportunities which we see through, you know, AI and IoT and analytics, this will really transform and create opportunities which never existed before.
Thank you.
Yeah, in this context, when we look at the global GDP growth last 50 years, that was about a 3.5% or so. And if you correlate that with population growth, you realize that over the last decades, the major share of our growth in our economy was driven by a growth in population. Now we already can calculate where the population growth peaks. So this is on the horizon, not in Pakistan. That's why I'm with you that here there is actually, this is why we talk about this big opportunity in this country. But in the world average, we see the peak coming. And that means if we want to keep our economies growing, we have to increase productivity, the productivity per person in employment, which means we talk about gender equality then, yeah, where do I get the workforce from? And I talk about productivity increasing. So for me, this whole discussion whether the future of work is impacted by new technologies, automation, artificial intelligence or so, that's a secondary question. We don't have a choice. We will have to do it, and we will do it. We always did it. Today, nobody wonders if we needed the wheel or the weaving loom or the steam machine or the car or the internet. Yeah, and in 50 years from now, nobody will question whether we needed AI. I think it's a shock reaction when we see the tremendous change, but there's no question that we need it. So that's going to happen, and we will have to apply all these technologies in order to improve life, in order to, for example, address, and I think that's the much more urgent issue, address our resource consumption. So our consumption of resources is going up, and in order to get efficiency into the system, we just had efficiency as an example, we need to use these technologies. In order to reduce our batch sizes to 1, we need what we call Industry 4.0. So there's no, I don't think we have a choice.
Irfan's very optimistic. We have no choice, but we already see in the world that a lot of people can't cope. Yeah? And we see a lot of social upheaval as a result of it. Khalid?
You see, I'm very appreciative of technological development, but at the same time very apprehensive also. I'll give you just a couple of examples. You know, board meetings, you are talking and other person is just chatting or, oh, what are you doing? I am multitasking. So at the same time, it gives an impression that you are not that important and so on and so forth. So the discipline has to be made, and a couple of times in the board meeting, chairman had to say, put your telephones away. 2, socially, number of times, you know, you go and meet your friend, so he is talking and he is, you know, looking at the telephone. You know, it does not give me a good feeling at all. Lately, in my own family, sitting in the dining table, now everybody has the telephone. So, you know, you don't really kind of look into each other, look into the eyes and, you know, talking, and it requires definitely some kind of discipline. My own example, you see, it has affected my sleep because my telephone is on my right-hand side. I would always have urge, whenever I get up middle of the night, to look at, oh my God, you know, which messages have come or what, you know, mails have come, and it is very difficult to resist ourselves to immediately start working. So I guess, you know, all said and done, whether, you know, you are in the office environment, you are in the boardroom, you are meeting socially in your own family and yourself, going forward, you have to discipline yourself.
Appreciate it. I still want to get to the have-nots. Leyla, can you just address that one?
Very quickly. 2 aspects. One, definitely we need to look at all these advancements and how are they positively improving a person's life. So the quality of life should increase and we should benefit from that satisfaction. And then we hopefully will have time to solve the problems in the world, right? We'll be focusing more on determining what those problems are and how do we solve it, and technology is going to help us. Other aspect is, yes, there's going to be certain levels of disruption, so our target has to be how do we augment the capabilities, work with governments, work with educational institutions to you know, uncover this universal basic income concept, for example. But I also think it will be extremely important as we move into this from future of work to future of life, and for future of work is digital ethics. I think digital ethics is going to be another determinant on when we use, how we use.
What is digital ethics? Just
so
for us?
We all know what ethics is, right? Now the digital version. So when we start talking about applying AI in certain areas, we have to make sure that we keep in mind what is that data? How is it interacting? Why am I using that data? What am I going to serve? What is it that I'm going to achieve if I use that data or if I put AI in a certain place? There are lots of examples, especially in diversity and inclusion area, where AI is failing, right? So, or shouldn't be used. So how do we, as technologists, governments, and enterprises, make sure that we put digital ethics in the epicenter, just like we are putting people in the epicenter? And how do we make sure that we really drove this around meaning, purpose, outcome. What are we going to achieve? Because I do believe, like everybody else, we're going to reach a stage where there's going to be absolutely no limits. So I think digital ethics, people, and the purpose and the outcome should be our limitations, or how we define what we're going to do.
And that links very beautiful to what Dr. Ebrahim says about values.
Yeah, well, you know, I think, you know, in the back door we can see, you know, 5G is coming. So we're talking about, you know, blockchain. It's coming soon, and it's emerging very fast. So we're talking about Internet of Things. And when we talk about Internet of Things, definitely, you know, we need a different sort of jobs, especially when Ms. Leyla said, you know, about the ethical part of it. So we need some experts in knowledge, ethical specialists. Also, we need some experts in digital insurance part of it. So there will be a massive tasks coming in the next 10 years that we really need to look into it, especially the ethical part of it. I mean, when you talk about mass of knowledge, mass of information, especially when we, you know, when we go through the stage of Internet of Things, so we have to watch out exactly what's happening, and we have to get ready for this era that's coming very soon, whether we like it or we don't like it. But as I said at the beginning, it is not a matter of predicting what's happening, or we can see it's happening. It's a matter of how we tailor our society, how we tailor ourselves to these things, and to not to resist it. Definitely, I'm against you know, resisting things. You know, I'm toward, you know, changes, but managing the changes in a very positive way. And you know, one last comment. In fact, I've been in Pakistan like 5 years ago, but you know, I came now, and I can see there is a different mind of set. You know, starting from the top, starting from Prime Minister to everybody. And I think, I mean, it is. I attended hundreds of conferences, but it is the first time I see a command of joint forces hosting a dinner. So there's definitely, you know, a change of mindset in Pakistan, and you know, I congratulate all of you.
Thank you very much. And seeing myself as a Desi Gora, I feel very comfortable with you saying that. Thank you, Ben. I think I've got 2 minutes left, so I just bring. Huh? No more questions. Yes, ma'am. She's tougher than I went. 5 seconds. Pretty quick comment. I don't know whether I've got a microphone here somewhere.
It's cute.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Right. I'm just disappointed to see that the government's or the country's largest employer is not represented on this panel. I would venture to suggest that if we had someone from the public sector, it would do them a lot of good, because everything that has been said is total anathema to the bureaucrat.
Absolutely. I take your point. I take your point.
So they're the ones. They've been preaching to the converted. We need to convert.
And I think that fits very well with just a last 30 seconds that I would like to conclude. I think the future of work is both fascinating and scary at the same time. I really appreciate the fact that there's only us who can shape that. Yeah? I went last year to this concept called the Singularity University, which is all about exponential technologies. And there's one statement that really stuck with me, that the first person that's going to be 200 years old has already been born. The first person that's going to be 200 years old has already been born. Maybe it's one of you. Maybe not. Sorry. Yes. So I think we have a huge opportunity. And it's not about how old we have a huge opportunity to shape that future. The first and foremost responsibility is to ourselves and to the workplace that we're part of. The second, and certainly not underestimated responsibility, is to the people that find it more difficult to adapt than you are. Because if we don't take responsibility to take everybody along, this world will become more fragmented, and whether we have to take the government along or government employees along as well. So we really have a responsibility as the intelligentsia, is that the word? Oof, that was a difficult one. Of this country. Not only to be open to change and shape that future for ourselves, for the companies that we run, but specifically for the people that don't have that ability, or don't have that opportunity, or don't have those resources. And I would like to wish you luck in doing so. To end, I'm going to do a little bit of flagrant promotion, if you allow. I'm running a startup, an HR technology company, and it is related to the future of work. I'm going to show you a 90-second video of how the future of recruitment is looking. And it's the company that I run does gamified assessments and gamified recruitment. And the way that people are going to be, millennials are currently being recruited, is completely changing versus the old way. And I'm very proud. Apple always says on their products, designed in California, correct? Well, this product is designed in Pakistan and produced in Pakistan. So I just want to share that. Let's play that video. Can I play the video, please? Tell me that the future of work is not in Pakistan. We're doing this here. Thank you, panel. Fantastic. Thank you very much for your contribution. I had it within an hour. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was absolutely fascinating. I think we'd all agree. So we'll all have a look closer at that. It was really lovely. Stay on stage for a minute. I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Asfar Hassan to please come and join us, the CEO of Nutshell, of course. And Ali Akai, if Ali can join us also, please, on stage here to give a token of appreciation to all of our dear panelists. So we can invite you both up. And then if I can also kindly invite Zobaya Jalal to please join us also, of course. Zobaya, the Federal Minister for Defense Production, and going to be on our next panel, but we'd like to have her here also. So if I might, one by one, please, call on our panelists. Dr. Ebrahim Khalifa Al-Dossary. And perhaps if you can move to the front to get a photograph. Dear panelists, work with me on this, and then we'll get everybody in and we'll have a group photograph. Okay, if we can have all of our people just together for the presentations. And please stay on the stage. We will have a group photograph afterwards. So, Dr. Ebrahim, stay with us. Leyla Dalish. Leyla, please. Ebrahim, can you please, can I hold you? Whatever. I'd like to invite Manuel Kuehn. Manuel, Kuehn, please. And please stay on the stage with us. We will get a group photo, so just a moment. From HUBCO, Khalid Mansoor. Khalid, please join us. And from Telenor, Irfan Wahab Khan. And Paul Keijzer, please join us for that presentation. And just give us a moment then, let Paul have the presentation, and then we'll have a group photo. Dr. Ebrahim, just a moment. Whatever. I'm giving up here. Okay, and all together now, all together. Move out on the stage a little bit and give them a lovely group photo. Wonderful, wonderful. My job is almost done there. Thank you so much. That was a fascinating panel. And indeed, I think right throughout the day, there's a lot of issues that can be brought up with various members of the panel. And